I walked into spin class and saw the girl in front of me FaceTiming my boyfriend of 4 years while he whispered, "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful." When I confronted him, he rolled his eyes and said, "You're acting like this is some crime. It's just dating." I stayed silent. That was 1 month ago. Yesterday, he sat in court in an orange jumpsuit while the judge ruled guilty on every count. My name is Sophia Reynolds, 28 years old, and I never truly bought into the whole "girls support girls" mantra until it saved my life from crumbling completely. Arriving at Velocity Vibes for my usual Saturday morning spin class, I felt the familiar buzz of endorphins kicking in, the air thick with the scent of fresh eucalyptus towels and the faint hum of bikes already whirring in warm-up mode. Little did I know that beneath the pumping music and neon lights beat the heart of a betrayal that would change everything. The bombshell I was about to uncover on that bike would shatter my relationship forever, but not in the way I expected. It would ignite a firestorm of solidarity that turned strangers into sisters, weaving a network of support that extended far beyond the studio walls and into the depths of justice and healing. If you're watching this from a place where you've questioned female empowerment or dealt with heartbreak that felt isolating, drop a comment below and subscribe to see how I turned a cheating scandal into the strongest bond of my life, one that brought justice and healing in ways I never imagined, proving that vulnerability can forge unbreakable alliances. I grew up in a cozy suburb of Seattle, in a charming craftsman home with 4 bedrooms, a backyard swing set that creaked under rainy afternoons, and parents who worked tirelessly to give us a stable life filled with weekend farmers market trips and cozy movie nights by the fireplace. From the outside, we were the classic Pacific Northwest family, hiking on misty trails, grabbing artisanal coffee runs, and upholding holiday traditions that felt warm, unbreakable, and full of homemade treats like Mom's famous apple cider donuts. My mom, a school teacher named Laura, started her career in a small classroom with nothing but a chalkboard, a stack of worn books, and innovative lesson plans for early childhood education that emphasized emotional intelligence and creative play. She built it into a respected position as a district coordinator before my dad, Michael Reynolds, joined the family dynamic full-time after his tech startup took off in 2005, providing the financial cushion that allowed Mom to expand her educational influence through workshops and community programs. Dad expanded our family life with stability and adventures, growing our modest home into a hub of laughter, support, and occasional backyard barbecues where neighbors would gather to share stories under string lights. Under their guidance, our family thrived, from simple picnics in the nearby parks to annual vacations that always revolved around quality time, like road trips to the Oregon coast where we'd collect seashells and build sandcastles until sunset. The Reynolds name became synonymous with resilience in our community circles, and my parents never let us forget the value of hard work, especially for their daughters, often reminding us that perseverance in the face of doubt was the key to true fulfillment. There were 2 of us Reynolds kids. My older sister, Ava, 32, was the shining star, always the center of attention with her effortless charm and social butterfly ways. Despite not showing much drive for academics or long-term goals, she majored in liberal arts, socialized through college with endless parties and networking events, and still landed a cushy marketing job right after graduation thanks to Dad's connections in the local business scene. Ava spent more time at brunches with her girlfriends or with her endless stream of dates than focusing on her career, often coming home with stories of glamorous outings that made our family dinners lively but superficial. But somehow Mom and Dad remained convinced she was the natural leader of our family, the one destined to carry on the legacy of warmth and community they cherished. Then there was me, Sophia, always the middle ground peacemaker at 28, trying to balance everyone's emotions while pursuing my own quiet passions. Unlike my sister, I inherited Mom's passion for wellness and self-improvement, always the one organizing family yoga sessions or suggesting healthier meal options during holidays. I started journaling at 10, filling notebooks with thoughts on gratitude and growth, and created my first fitness routine at 14, blending dance and meditation to cope with the subtle family dynamics that left me feeling overshadowed. I studied nutrition and psychology at the University of Washington, graduated with honors after late-night study sessions fueled by herbal teas and determination, and had real ideas for building a health coaching business that could empower others to find balance in chaotic lives. Yet somehow, my family always brushed me aside during discussions about ambitions, as if my dreams were secondary to Ava's spontaneous plans or Liam's digital escapades, often changing the subject with a pat on the back and a, "That's interesting, dear." My younger brother, Liam, 25, rounded out our trio with his laid-back energy and tech-savvy flair. He leveraged our family's supportive vibe to become a gaming streamer with thousands of fans who loved his curated glimpses into laid-back Seattle living, complete with unboxings of the latest gadgets and live streams from our backyard during summer evenings. He had zero interest in wellness or family planning but never missed a chance to post about being a Reynolds while contributing little to our close-knit dynamic, often turning family events into content opportunities that felt more performative than genuine. Dad Michael came from humble roots in a logging town and handled family conflicts the way all practical Northwest dads did, by diffusing them with humor, a quick hike suggestion, or a distraction like firing up the grill for impromptu burgers. He played the role of mediator but ultimately enabled Mom's tendency to favor Ava's whims, especially when it came to dismissing my career aspirations, perhaps because he saw echoes of his own startup struggles in my ideas but feared the risks for me. Sophia, maybe share your wellness idea, he'd occasionally prompt at dinner, his eyes twinkling with encouragement, only to chuckle and change the subject when Mom gave him that look, her way of keeping things harmonious without delving into potential disagreements. Laura, please. This is real-life planning we're discussing, she'd say with a gentle smile, before turning back to Ava to chat about shopping hauls or social events or whatever light-hearted topic they preferred, like the latest neighborhood gossip or plans for the next family game night. Family gatherings always centered around casual talks that somehow excluded my deeper contributions, the conversations flowing like a river around my input without ever fully including it. Mom and Ava would dominate with gossip about friends and plans for weekend getaways, while I sat quietly, understanding relationships and personal growth better than anyone. My suggestions on mindfulness exercises or healthy recipes met with nods but no follow-through. If I tried to interject with coaching ideas, Mom would smile kindly and say something like, "That's nice, Sophia. But let's keep things light for now. We don't want to turn dinner into a seminar." The breaking point came when I was 22. Fresh out of UW with top marks and a portfolio bursting with potential, I developed a holistic wellness app prototype that could have revolutionized personal health tracking before apps like MyFitnessPal dominated the market, incorporating mood logging, habit streaks, and community challenges tailored to individual needs. I spent months refining the user interface with user feedback from beta testers, conducting market research on emerging trends in mental health apps, and even prototyping wireframes late into the night under my desk lamp. Dad finally agreed to let me demo it at a family dinner, supposedly as a fun share to get their input and perhaps some encouragement. I still remember setting up my laptop at the dining table amidst the aroma of Mom's roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes, my heart racing with a mix of nerves and excitement, my hands slightly trembling as I connected the HDMI cable to the living room TV for a better view. My family watched with polite interest as I walked through the features, explaining how it could track daily moods alongside physical activity for a more comprehensive wellness picture. 10 minutes in, Mom checked her watch, sighed softly as if weary from the day's chores, and interrupted mid-slide. "I think we've seen enough," she said with a soft smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, her tone laced with that maternal protectiveness that often masked dismissal. Sophia's app is creative, but impractical for everyday people like us. Busy families need simple tools, not complicated tech that requires constant input. She turned to Ava with an apologetic nod, as if to say, "Back to normalcy. Your sister just graduated and is full of these idealistic concepts that sound wonderful in theory but might not hold up in the real world. Now, shall we discuss real weekend plans, like that new cafe Ava mentioned?" The dismissal stung like a fresh paper cut, deep and unexpected, as I closed my laptop while they laughed lightly and shifted topics to Ava's latest shopping find or Liam's upcoming stream schedule, as if my effort, my passion project born from countless sleepless nights, never happened or mattered. That night, alone in my childhood bedroom with its faded posters of inspirational quotes and shelves of self-help books gathering dust, I decided to pivot my life entirely. I'd build my own path in wellness, something so impactful and self-sustaining that even my family couldn't ignore it, turning their doubt into the fuel for my independence. I moved to a small apartment in downtown Seattle with $4,000 saved from part-time barista gigs and no safety net beyond my determination. My parents thought it was a phase, a young adult rebellion fueled by post-college wanderlust. They humored it with gentle teasing during our weekly calls, Dad joking about my adventurous spirit, while Mom sent care packages of homemade granola bars. "She'll come back when reality hits and the rent checks bounce," I overheard Dad telling Mom at one family brunch I skipped, their voices carrying through the phone with that mix of concern and amusement. Those first years were grueling, a test of every resilience lesson I'd ever journaled about. My shoebox studio in a noisy area near the Market District drained my budget with its leaky faucet and thin walls that let in the sounds of late-night arguments from neighbors. I survived on oatmeal packets microwaved in a shared kitchen and black coffee from the corner stand, pulling 70-hour weeks, first as a barista at a local gym where I'd sneak in free workouts during breaks, then as a freelance nutrition consultant, offering virtual sessions to anyone who'd pay $20 for advice on meal prepping or stress reduction techniques. Every spare dollar went into developing my wellness brand, scrimping on everything from groceries to social outings to fund domain registrations and basic app development tools. I launched Vital Flow under the pseudonym Sophie Hale, a name that echoed my full identity, Sophia Louise, without tying it to the Reynolds family, ensuring my success or failure stood on its own merits, free from nepotism or preconceived notions. The initials nodded to Sophia Louise, but no one connected the dots, allowing me to build authentically. Started small, offering virtual coaching sessions via Zoom to a handful of clients found through free Craigslist ads, reinvesting every fee into better lighting for videos or stock photos for my website. By year 2, I had 5 consistent clients and a basic website hosted on a budget platform, complete with blog posts on topics like balancing work and wellness in a busy world. The breakthrough hit when I created a mindfulness integration program linking daily habits to mental health tracking, similar to what I'd pitched at that family dinner, but refined with real user feedback from online forums and beta groups I'd cultivated through free webinars. Ironically akin to my spurned idea, investors from small wellness funds began reaching out after a viral post on a health subreddit, but I retained control, owning my journey and turning down offers that demanded too much equity. Over the next 6 years, I expanded Vital Flow into a $150,000 valuation app with users in 5 states, adding features like personalized meditation guides and community forums for shared progress tracking. Throughout, I kept my alias in all dealings, using it for emails, social handles, and even virtual conferences where I'd appear with a simple background to maintain privacy. In the wellness world, Sophie Hale was known as an inspiring, low-key founder who avoided flashy podcasts and events, preferring to let the app's results speak for themselves. When public spots were unavoidable, like a local health expo, I'd tweak my style with a wig or different makeup and let guest speakers handle the main talks, ensuring my family remained clueless. Family stayed oblivious to my success, their holiday Zooms filled with questions about my little side hustle or assumptions I was still scraping by. During those calls or rare visits home for birthdays, I vague responded, saying work steady or figuring it out, downplaying milestones like my first 1,000 downloads to avoid scrutiny. Mom never probed deeper, having pegged my path as fleeting or secondary to Ava's more visible social life. This worked perfectly as I grew Vital Flow into a surprise for them all, a tool that not only empowered users but also positioned me to detect patterns in toxic relationships through anonymous user stories shared in the app's forums. What they didn't know was that for the past year, I'd been networking with influencers who were key to my ex's social circle, subtly gathering insights on red flags in dating. I analyzed his patterns through subtle app surveys on relationship health, spotted his deceptions in user anecdotes that mirrored my suspicions, and positioned myself as the unwitting catalyst to expose him by joining groups where his flings overlapped. 6 months ago, I'd anonymously tipped off a mutual friend about his double life via a burner account linked to Sophie Hale, but she brushed it off as rumor, too invested in the facade. Now, 4 years into my relationship with Derek, I was at spin class with a plan that would change everything, having signed up under a fake name to observe without raising alarms. Our romance was faltering with his endless excuses for late nights and distant texts, behaviors I'd rationalized as work stress but now saw as cracks in his carefully constructed lies. Derek didn't know it yet, but I was about to become his undoing and my own rebirth, transforming personal pain into a beacon for others. The week before that fateful spin class, I was in my home office overlooking Elliott Bay, the water glistening under the rare Seattle sun as I finalized updates for Vital Flow's new group coaching feature, which included live Q&A sessions on spotting toxic patterns in relationships. My assistant buzzed in with my schedule, her voice efficient through the intercom. "Your virtual session is set for Tuesday at 9 a.m., she said, handing me the planner with color-coded tabs for each client type. "Sure you don't want to bring a co-coach for the in-person event at the studio?" I shook my head, my reflection in the window showing the determined set of my jaw. "This is personal. I'll manage solo," I replied, my mind already racing ahead to the potential confrontation. After she left, my phone rang with its custom wellness chime. It was my best friend, Riley, from those early broke days when we shared a cramped apartment above a noisy cafe, surviving on shared yoga mats and dreams of better tomorrows. "Are you really keeping up this perfect couple facade?" she asked bluntly, her voice laced with the concern of someone who'd seen me through previous heartaches. After all his red flags, the canceled dates, the secretive phone habits, after months of barely trusting him, I sighed, turning to the window where ferries dotted the bay like moving punctuation in my thoughts. "I have to confirm it myself. Riley, I need to see the truth unfold in real time, to capture the moment when the mask slips completely." "Remember that last girls' trip disaster to Portland," she said carefully, her tone softening with memory. "He ghosted you for 2 days while working late on some mysterious project, and you came back doubting everything but stayed anyway, convincing yourself it was just stress from his job." The memory hurt like a pulled muscle, sharp and lingering. He'd toasted our future at a wine tasting, eyes on his phone the whole time, typing furiously under the table. "This time will be different," I promised, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "Everything changes this spin class. It's not just about exposure, it's about reclaiming my narrative." I spent the evening prepping, choosing my outfit deliberately to blend and yet stand out in subtle ways. Gone were the baggy tees he associated with my lazy weekends. Instead, I packed high-performance leggings with moisture-wicking fabric, a cropped top for class that highlighted my hard-earned core strength from years of Pilates, and subtle signs of confidence that empowered women recognize, like a stack of delicate silver rings symbolizing self-reliance. A Garmin watch for tracking my heart rate during the inevitable emotional spike, a Lululemon bag slung over my shoulder with essentials like protein bars and a journal for quick notes, delicate gold hoops from a local artisan that caught the light just right. Nothing flashy or over the top, all intentionally strong and self-assured, chosen to remind myself of the woman I'd become. After years of downplaying my independence around Derek to avoid his jealous comments, I wanted him, and anyone watching, to glimpse my strength before the full reveal, a quiet armor against the storm ahead. Saturday morning, I drove to Velocity Vibes, a studio I rarely visited despite my wellness expertise, preferring home workouts in my sunlit living room with Vital Flow guiding my sessions. This class warranted the exception, the drive through misty streets heightening my anticipation like the build-up to a major app launch. During the warm-up stretches, I reviewed my suspicions once more, scrolling through anonymous user stories on my phone that echoed Derek's behaviors, gaslighting, double lives, ensuring I was ready for whatever came, my breathing exercises keeping me centered. The irony wasn't lost on me. Years of building emotional resilience through my app, teaching users to spot red flags and set boundaries, now facing my own test in a room full of potential allies or skeptics. As the confrontation unfolded with Mia's screen lighting up the betrayal, the studio's response was immediate and overwhelming. Women rallying around me like a protective force, their actions a live demonstration of the community I'd always preached about but never fully experienced. Sasha, the instructor, not only paused the class but gathered everyone in a tight circle on the rubber-matted floor, the air still humming with the echo of the last beat drop. "Tell us what you need right now," she said firmly, her voice cutting through my sobs like a lifeline, her hand on my shoulder steady and warm. Tissues appeared from gym bags, water bottles with encouraging stickers like "Boss Babe," even a quick pep talk from the front row regular whose name tag read Jenna. "Honey, he's not worth your sweat. Literally, wipe that toxin out and rise stronger." Mia, mortified and pale under her perfectly contoured cheeks, shared her side with trembling hands. "He said you were ancient history, just a casual hookup from last year that meant nothing, that he was ready for something real." The group chat formed on the spot, with numbers exchanged rapidly amid whispers of strategy, and plans to investigate his digital footprint. Usernames pulled, profiles screenshot *Ted, lies exposed in real time as fingers flew across screens. Pre-class cocktails. Well, smoothies from the studio's juice bar, were tense, the fruity blends doing little to ease the knot in my chest. Sasha fluttered with concern, adjusting the playlist to something more soothing. Derek checked his phone obsessively in my mind's replay of our last fight, where he dismissed my concerns as paranoia. Ava would have bragged about her latest fling in a similar situation, turning it into drama for her social circle. Liam documented for his stream. But here, the women focused on support. I sipped my green juice slowly, observing the budding sisterhood with fresh eyes, the way they shared stories of their own heartbreaks to make me feel less alone. No longer the betrayed girlfriend seeking answers in isolation, but a woman about to harness collective power, their empathy wrapping around me like a warm towel after a cold plunge. "Class is restarting," Sasha announced, "but we're doing it together. For you, with modified routines to keep the energy high but the pressure low." I took a deep breath, wiping the last tear, knowing by cooldown, nothing would be the same, the class transforming from a workout into a turning point. Velocity Vibes spin classes were always intense affairs, the dim-lit studio pulsing under strobe lights that synced with heart-pounding bass, set with premium bikes equipped with digital metrics displays that only emerged for peak hours to track every calorie burned and mile pedaled. Chrome water bottles held chilled infusions of cucumber and mint, casting refreshing scents over the energetic setup of resistance knobs, microfiber sweat towels embroidered with motivational quotes, and motivational murals painted in vibrant hues that Mom would have commissioned from the trendiest artist in Seattle, featuring empowering slogans like "Rise Stronger" amid abstract waves representing life's ups and downs. I noted with wry amusement that I'd been placed in the back row, far from the instructor's podium as possible, perhaps by chance or the universe's ironic sense of humor. Typical of my luck in feeling overlooked. The front row held the regulars with their perfect form and coordinated outfits, while Mia occupied a prime spot near the mirror for optimal selfies. Sasha took her perch at the front with me in the mix, symbolically bridging old isolation with new alliance as women shifted bikes to form a supportive cluster around me. Staff brought out energy gels garnished with fresh fruit slices for a mid-class boost, recovery shakes blended with superfoods like spirulina and chia seeds. And finally, the playlist, a high BPM mix curated to perfection, accompanied by all the motivational cues from Sasha's wireless mic, her voice echoing over the speakers like a rally cry. Sasha led with dynamic precision, calling out resistance levels and sprints, while Liam would have vlogged the scene if he were there, providing running commentary on the vibes. And here's Sasha pumping up the class, just like her mentors before her, continuing the fitness tradition of excellence in every pedal and push, her energy infectious as she adjusted her headset. I caught a regular wincing at the intensity of a particularly grueling hill climb before taking a deep swig of her shake to rehydrate. By my count, it was her third since warm-up, the electrolyte packets scattered like confetti. Once we were in rhythm, Sasha raised her mic for the traditional shoutouts, a moment to share quick wins or motivations before the next set. Another ritual where we voiced gratitudes or goals. It had once been fun and connective before devolving into brag sessions about personal records or social wins. The front row pro went first, as the veterans always did. Grateful for crushing my PR this week on that K***ler sprint, she began, her voice steady despite the burn in her legs. Though I knew from whispers in the locker room, the studio had seen tougher crowds lately, with attendance dipping due to competing apps. And for my new home treadmill setup, she high-fived Mia next to her, and for fresh starts with amazing vibes that make every class feel like a celebration. Mia beamed at Sasha, who nodded approvingly, though she confided in me earlier about struggling with superficial trends in the fitness industry that prioritized aesthetics over substance. When my turn hit, I paused my pedal and spoke steady, my voice carrying over the cooling fans. Grateful for life's curveballs that test our strength. That betrayal sometimes reveals true allies who lift us higher, resilience trumps illusion every time, and empowerment is the ultimate win that comes from within and around us. I toasted to authentic bonds that withstand the toughest rides. Sasha raised a brow, sensing the depth and personal edge in my words, but moved smoothly to her own thanks, centering on community strength and the power of showing up for each other. The quiet one offered generic nods to health and support, her words earnest and soft-spoken amid the group's energy. Throughout the ride, Sasha seemed focused yet attuned to the room's shift, adjusting resistance dials on bikes and calling encouragement cues, her energy strained slightly as if sensing the undercurrent of drama. The front row dominated with cheers for personal bests during sprints, while the back interrupted with support shouts for my situation, creating a chorus of "You've got this" that drowned out the playlist at times. As cool down neared with slower pedals and stretching prompts, Sasha tapped her mic, the beep slicing through heavy breaths and the whir of cooling fans. "I have a shift to announce," she said, standing tall with command presence, one impacting us all in ways we can't ignore. The bikes slowed to a halt. Even Mia paused her water sip, her bottle hovering mid-air. "As you know, I've poured my soul into Velocity Vibes as a haven for strength, sweat, and sisterhood. But cycles turn, and change calls, sometimes in the form of hard truths we can't pedal past." She paused dramatic, her eyes scanning the room with a mix of resolve and regret. "I've uncovered a web of deceit here today, one that challenges the very foundation of trust we build on." The front row gasped audibly, hands flying to mouths. "What? Sasha, are you serious?" Sasha raised her hand for silence, her posture unyielding like during a max-effort interval. "Been piecing clues for weeks on personal matters that affect more than just one of us. The reveal finalizes now. It's time to address the elephant in the studio." The back row erupted in whispers, phones discreetly pulled out. "But what about our sisterhood? My feed's tied to being a Vibes regular. How do I spin this?" "That leads to part 2. Sasha continued, face unyielding against the rising tension. "This betrayal won't define us as victims. Instead, it will forge us stronger." Now all voiced outrage, the energy shifting from supportive to charged. "That's our space." The front row slammed handles, bikes wobbling slightly under the force. "Meaning?" the veteran wailed, now snapping the drama on her phone for her followers. "Where's the justice in blindsiding us like this?" Sasha waited for the storm to subside, her breathing even as if leading a meditation cooldown. "We'll reclaim and rebuild from this, turning pain into power. Rest will foster a true empowerment circle that honors authenticity over appearances." This is the veteran stood flushed with exertion and emotion. "Gave years to these classes, showing up rain or shine. Promised lead instructor spot someday. You promised us all a place here." The shy one teared up, though she kept her form perfect for poise, her wipes dabbing at eyes carefully to avoid smudges. Chaos through the studio, with women clustering in small groups to process, some hugging, others pacing, the air thick with a mix of sweat, perfume, and raw feelings. I stayed composed, sipping my recovery drink deliberate, the cool liquid grounding me amid the whirlwind. Sasha noticed my calm demeanor and gave me a quizzical look, her brow furrowing slightly. "Sophia, you seem unsurprised by all this, almost prepared." The group gradually quieted as eyes turned toward me, suddenly remembering my earlier breakdown and the role it played in sparking this revelation. "Actually," I said, setting my bottle down with precision on the bike's cup holder, the clink echoing in the hush. "I have just one question." I looked directly at Sasha, my voice calm and clear despite the racing pulse from the ride and revelations. "Who exposed it? Who brought this truth to light?" Sasha swelled with a mix of pride and defensiveness, pleased to hold the key information. "Grateful for a tip from a trusted source," she replied. "A wellness influencer named Sophie Hale. She messaged anonymously, generous amid our challenges, offering insights that aligned perfectly with what I'd suspected but couldn't prove." I took a sip of my shake, using the moment to steady myself for what came next, the room's energy crackling like static before a storm. The studio felt charged, the moment suspended between the past deceptions and a future of reckoning. "Sasha," I said finally, my voice calm and clear, cutting through the tension like a well-timed cue. "I am Sophie Hale." The room went completely silent. I could hear the faint drip of a water bottle in the corner, marking the seconds of frozen disbelief. For several heartbeats, nobody moved, the air thick with shock. The silence was absolute, as if the studio's energy had been *ket out, leaving only the echo of spinning wheels in our minds. I watched the emotions play across Sasha's face in rapid succession, confusion furrowing her brow, disbelief widening her eyes, shock slackening her jaw, and finally the first flickers of anger tightening her features. The front row pro was the first to react, knocking over her electrolyte bottle as she stood abruptly. The pink liquid spread across the mat like a spilled secret, a vivid punctuation to the moment. "What the hell are you talking about?" she demanded, looking between Sasha and me with growing panic, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms. The veteran incredibly was still filming, her hands shaking as she captured what was quickly becoming the most dramatic content her followers had ever seen. "Oh my god," she whispered to her phone. "Did our regular just say she's the wellness guru who tipped off the cheat?" Aunt Karen reached for her shake glass, found it empty, and promptly grabbed a fresh bottle from the cooler instead. I stood slowly, feeling a strange sense of calm after carrying this secret for so long, the weight lifting like finishing a grueling sprint. "Sophie Hale," I said. Sophia Louise Hale. That's the name I've been using professionally for the past 6 years while building Vital Flow into a $150,000 valuation app that empowers thousands. Sasha found her voice at last, her instructor poise cracking under the pressure. "This is preposterous," she sputtered, her wireless mic still clipped on, amplifying her words to the empty bikes. "Sophie Hale is a respected mindfulness coach, not some spin class participant who's been playing detective in Seattle." I reached into my gym bag and removed my business card case made of sleek recycled leather with the Vital Flow logo embossed on its surface. I slid a card across the mat toward her. "Actually, Sasha, I am Sophie Hale. I founded Vital Flow 6 years ago after my family dismissed my wellness proposal and humiliated me in front of them at a dinner where my ideas were laughed off as naive dreams." Sasha snatched up the card, staring at it as if it might transform in her hands, her fingers trembling slightly from the adrenaline crash. "This is some kind of joke," she said, but her voice had lost its certainty, cracking like a dropped water bottle. "Vital Flow now partners with key influencers in your circle, like Harmony health coaches and peak performance trainers. We also recently secured collabs with your top clients, Eastside Yoga and Urban Retreats. This exposure is the final piece in a strategic plan I've been implementing for the past 12 months to highlight toxic patterns. You've been spying on our lives," the front row pro accused, her face mottled with rage, sweat from the class mixing with fresh beads of stress. "That's social sabotage." "No, it's called pattern recognition," I countered evenly, backing my words with the calm I'd cultivated through years of meditation practices. Everything I learned about the deceptions came from publicly available posts, group chats that were shared openly, and completely legal channels like anonymous wellness forums where stories aligned. I turned back to Sasha. "The truth is, relationships in this group have been failing for months due to unchecked enabling. Your patterns are toxic, fostering competition over support, and you've lost 30% of member trust in the past year based on exit surveys I've accessed through public reviews." "How dare you?" Sasha began, but I cut her off gently but firmly, like adjusting resistance mid-ride. "I tried to warn you first, you know. 3 months ago, Sophie Hale sent an anonymous wellness tip about recognizing cheating signs in partners, offering resources for group discussions that could have prevented this. You rejected it without even reading past the intro email, dismissing it as not our vibe." Sasha's eyes widened in recognition, her hand flying to her mouth. "The Harmony alert, that was you." I nodded, the pieces clicking for everyone listening. "I wanted to give you a chance to address the issues without knowing it came from me, to foster genuine growth. Your pride wouldn't allow it, too focused on maintaining the perfect image. So this whole time you've been plotting against your own group," the veteran shouted, her phone still recording as she planned to steal our piece. Not steal, but uncover legally. "For the sake of healing, which is honestly more valuable than any facade." I kept my voice level despite the emotional storm brewing inside me, years of overlooked efforts bubbling up. "And let's be clear, this bond ceased being genuine the day you enabled his lies despite the whispers and signs. Despite my warnings being ignored time and again." The shy one finally lowered her phone, the reality apparently sinking in like the end of a long cooldown. "So, you're going to guide us now?" she asked in a small voice, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and uncertainty. "Technically, yes," I confirmed, though the dynamic will be completely overhauled to prioritize authenticity. Sasha stood abruptly, her bike scraping loudly against the studio floor as she pushed it aside in frustration. "This reveal is off," she declared, her voice echoing in the empty space. "I won't let this destroy my class as some kind of revenge plot. I've built this from nothing." I shook my head slowly, maintaining eye contact to convey the inevitability. "The proofs are solid, Sasha. The members support truth and growth. The statement goes out tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Legally, empowerment and transparency prevail here. I'll fight this, she threatened, though the uncertainty in her eyes told me she already knew she'd been outmaneuvered, her usual commanding presence faltering. My contacts will handle it. Your own members have already shared their stories extensively, I interrupted gently, but with the firmness of a well-practiced boundary setter. They advised you the tips were worth exploring in the current climate of wellness trends. What exactly will you tell them now? That you're upset because the insightful coach turns out to be your participant who's been undervalued all along. The veteran spoke for the first time since my revelation, her words slightly breathless but her gaze surprisingly clear amid the chaos. All these years, Sophia, all these years you were building this empire while we thought you were just another regular struggling with balance. While you thought I was naive or overly sensitive, I finished for her, the words carrying the weight of unspoken hurts. Yes, exactly. Sasha slammed her hand on the podium, the mic feedback screeching briefly. You have a choice to make right now, Sophia. You can be part of this group or the one who tore it apart. You can't be both. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, so predictable it almost made me sad, echoing the family dismissals I'd endured. 6 years ago, it would have devastated me, crumbling my confidence like a failed resolution. Now it merely confirmed what I'd always known deep down, that true support doesn't come with conditions. That's where you're wrong, Sasha, I said quietly, my voice steady as a guided meditation. I am both. I always have been. You just refuse to see it, too busy curating the perfect class image. The shy one had started crying in earnest now, mascara tracking down her perfectly contoured cheeks in black rivulets. What happens to us, to our routines, our spots in the front row? That depends, I answered honestly, meeting her eyes with compassion. On whether you want to actually engage in the group for growth or just claim its benefits without vulnerability. The front row pro pointed an accusing finger at me, her nail polish chipped from the intense grip on her handlebars. You planned this for spin class deliberately, didn't you? To humiliate us in front of the whole group during peak hour? I planned it for spin class because I knew everyone would be here, sweating through their facades, I corrected her calmly, the truth landing like a well-timed sprint finish. And because 3 months ago at a similar class, you praised his commitment, despite my subtle hints about inconsistencies, saying my intuition wasn't enough to warrant concern while brushing off the red flags as modern dating drama. Sasha's face flushed at the reminder, her cheeks turning the color of the studio's accent walls. That was different. He's charismatic, a networker who brings energy to the group. And there it is, I said softly, the words hanging heavy. The real reason warnings were ignored. Not facts, not intuition, not ethics, just charm and the fear of disrupting the vibe. The painful truth silenced the studio again. Even the front row pro had the grace to look uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. This session is over, Sasha finally declared, her voice cracking like a dropped resistance knob. Everyone out. I need to process this alone. She stormed from the studio, the sound of her office door slamming echoing through the space moments later like a final mic drop. The veteran rose unsteadily to her feet, her legs wobbly from the unfinished ride. I should go check on her, she murmured, though she paused beside my bike, her eyes searching mine. Are you really behind a $150,000 app? I nodded, the confirmation simple yet profound. And all those times you skipped classes saying you were too busy or couldn't afford the drop-in fee. I was building a brand, veteran, and I needed the space to grow without judgment. She touched my shoulder briefly, an unreadable expression on her face, part awe, part regret, then followed after Sasha, her footsteps hesitant on the mat. As the studio emptied, I remained seated on my bike, looking at the abandoned water bottles and towels around me. The music had long stopped, the lights dimmed to energy-saving mode, and the group I had once sought belonging in had scattered in shock and anger, some lingering in small clusters whispering furiously. It should have felt like victory, the exposure complete and the truth laid bare. Instead, a hollow ache spread through my chest as I realized that while I had finally earned their attention, I was further than ever from earning their full understanding, the path to reconciliation still uncertain. I retreated to the locker room as the studio descended into chaos below, the murmurs growing into heated debates about loyalty and change. Through the vents, I could hear Sasha shouting on the phone, presumably to her contacts or perhaps even Derek himself, while the veteran's placating tones rose and fell in counterpoint, trying to mediate as always. Occasionally, the front row pro's angry voice would join the cacophony, followed by the shy one's dramatic wailing, her sobs echoing like the end of a particularly emotional cool-down stretch. My old locker remained a time capsule to the person I had been when I first joined, the faded sticker from my first class, the bench where I'd spent countless hours venting about relationship doubts or journaling quick gratitude lists before rides. The racks lined with wellness magazines I contributed anonymous articles to under my alias, and the few romance novels I'd allowed myself as rare indulgences amid my busy schedule, their pages dog-eared from late-night reads. Debate trophies from high school wellness clubs and academic medals from UW gathered dust on the top shelf, achievements that had never impressed the one person whose approval I'd sought most, Derek, who always downplayed my hobby app as cute but not serious. I ran my fingers along the spines of my old planners, pulling one out at random, the cover worn from constant use. Inside were detailed routines, habit-tracking sketches, and notes for the very mindfulness program that had eventually become Vital Flow's flagship feature, ideas scribbled in margins during moments of doubt. The irony was not lost on me that everything I had built, my app, my resilience, had **N right here in the locker room where I had felt most invisible, changing after classes where my contributions were overlooked. A sharp knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find the front row pro, her tank top loosened and face flushed with either anger or the remnants of the workout, possibly both, her ponytail slightly disheveled from running her hands through her hair in frustration. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the room without waiting for an invitation, her energy still high from the class. I closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed protectively. "About what? How I ruined your spin session? Or how you plan to keep enabling a cheat who was tearing the group apart from the inside? You think you're so clever?" She hissed, pacing the small space like a caged athlete denied her cooldown. Little Sophia with her journals and her secret identity. Did you enjoy lying to our faces all these months, pretending to be just another member while plotting this takedown? About as much as you enjoyed ignoring the warning signs about Derek, I replied evenly, backing my words with the calm authority I'd honed through countless coaching sessions. Remember when I suggested we discuss relationship red flags during that wellness-themed class 4 months ago? Sasha dismissed it as too heavy for spin, but somehow 2 weeks later, you presented the exact same idea as your own group bonding activity. The front row pro stopped pacing, her expression darkening like a storm cloud over Puget Sound. I was the one who stayed committed. I put in the time at every class while you lurked in the back, using us for your research to prove some point about empowerment. You put in time? Yes, but what did you actually contribute beyond the surface? Besides using the group chat for gossip about dates and flings, and a front row spot you treated like a throne for selfies between sets? Her face contorted with fury, veins popping slightly from the residual workout strain. You don't know what you're talking about. I secured the Urban Retreats partnership. Urban Retreats approached Velocity Vibes because I personally reached out to their coordinator as Sophie Hale and recommended your classes as part of my long-term exposure strategy. I informed her, the truth landing like a heavy resistance increase. And I know exactly what I'm talking about because I've been monitoring the group's dynamics remotely for the past year as part of my due diligence for integration, including the private messages you thought were secure on the studio's app. The color drained from her face, her confident stance faltering. What are you saying? I know about the $20,000 you skimmed through fake wellness retreat bookings, front row pro. I know about the phantom sponsor fees that went directly to your personal PayPal for influencer collabs that never happened. I know everything, from the receipts to the timestamps. She took a threatening step toward me, her fists clenching at her sides like gripping handlebars in a sprint. You can't prove any of that, it's just hearsay. I have transaction records, account numbers, and chat logs showing the falsified entries came from your phone during times when only you were logged into the admin portal. I held her gaze steadily, unflinching. I'm not planning to pursue formal charges, that would hurt the group during the transition, but do not test me. You, she whispered, her voice breaking as reality hit, hands clenching into fists at her sides. You would destroy your own group mate. I would hold accountable an enabler who happens to be connected to me, I corrected her firmly. There's a difference. One fosters growth, the other perpetuates harm. We stood in tense silence until she finally turned away, her shoulders slumping in defeat. This isn't over, she warned, yanking open the door with a force that rattled the lockers. Actually, it is, I said to her retreating back, the words final like the end of a timer. You just don't realize it yet. Change is here, and it's pedaling forward. I had barely closed the door when another knock came, softer this time. This one was the shy one, her makeup freshly touched up despite the tear tracks still visible on her cheeks, her posture tentative as she entered. So, you were like a secret wellness mogul, she said without preamble, entering my space and immediately sitting on the bench, her voice a mix of awe and curiosity. That's actually kind of inspiring. I couldn't help but laugh at her rapid pivot from tears to admiration. Is that what you're going with 5 minutes ago? You were crying about losing your safe space in the group. She shrugged, examining her manicure with a casual air that belied the emotional roller coaster. I'm adaptable. It's essential for surviving in a world that throws curveballs like this. She looked up with sudden calculation in her eyes, a spark of opportunity gleaming. Just think of the content we could create together. My sister, the wellness warrior who exposed the truth. My followers would eat that up. Real stories of empowerment and betrayal turned triumph. Is that why you're here? To propose a collaboration amid the chaos? More like a mutual arrangement, she said, smoothing her tank top with deliberate care. You need a voice to humanize your brand, to make it relatable beyond the app screens. And I need an authentic connection to actual empowerment success instead of just sharing quotes and poses that feel hollow now. The nakedly transactional nature of her proposal was so typically her, opportunistic yet honest, that I almost admired it, seeing echoes of my own hustle in her pitch. And what about actually working for the group, learning the deeper dynamics, contributing something beyond your quiet nods and occasional shares? She wrinkled her nose, as if the idea was as unappealing as a post-class protein shake gone sour. God, no. Deep dives into therapy talk bore me, and intense meetings make me want to zone out. But I could be like the brand ambassador, the face of the lifestyle wellness angle, the one who shows how mindfulness fits into everyday chaos without feeling forced. The face of a mindfulness integration program for the lifestyle market, I repeated slowly, letting the words hang to highlight the absurdity. Do you hear yourself? It sounds like marketing fluff over substance. The shy one stood, straightening her shoulders with a defiant lift. Fine, mock me like everyone else in this group has at times. But my quiet strength and social SK*LLS are actually valuable in today's market, whether you respect them or not. I've built my own following from nothing, just like you did with your app. The parallel had never occurred to me before, and I found myself momentarily speechless, recognizing a strange kind of truth to it though our methods and values diverged dramatically, one rooted in surface appeal, the other in deep transformation. I'll think about it, I said finally, but not tonight. The dust needs to settle first. She nodded, apparently satisfied with even this small concession, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Just so you know, I've already posted about a major group shakeup without specifics. My engagement is through the roof, people craving real stories. After she left, I sat on the bench powering up my phone to check on the final details for tomorrow's public statement, notifications flooding in from Vital Flow users inspired by anonymous posts I'd seeded about betrayal and recovery. A gentle knock interrupted me again. Come in, I called, expecting perhaps a staff member with water or one of the lingering members. Instead, the veteran entered, looking surprisingly composed given the amount of drama she'd witnessed, her tank top changed to a cozy hoodie and leggings, her instructor-adjacent armor temporarily set aside for vulnerability. Sasha has locked herself in her office with a stack of energy drinks and the group bylaws, she said, settling onto the opposite bench where she used to share post-class stories as a newbie years ago. She's convinced there must be some clause to stop the exposure from going viral. There isn't, I said simply, my tone matter-of-fact like delivering a coaching tip. The proofs are irrefutable. *TS, timelines, member testimonies. She nodded, looking around the locker room thoughtfully, her eyes lingering on the faded murals and motivational posters that had inspired so many. You know, I kept pushing for inclusivity here, thinking you'd fade out once the initial enthusiasm waned. It was never about fading, veteran. It was about building a life of purpose. $150,000 app valuation, she mused, shaking her head slightly in disbelief. My fellow spinner built an empire in secret while we all thought you were just figuring out your path, juggling classes and side gigs. I turned to face her fully, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows. You could have asked more, veteran. Any of you could have shown genuine interest in what I was building beyond the surface chats, but none of you ever really wanted to know, too busy with the group's drama. Tears welled in her eyes, her tough exterior cracking. I knew, Sophia. Not the details, not the scale of your success, but I knew you were special. I saw it when you first joined, the way your mind worked differently, how you understood people's motivations and offered quiet advice that cut through the noise. She wiped at her cheeks with the back of her hand. I just didn't know how to amplify that in a group like ours, with a leader like Sasha who prioritized image over depth. You could have stood up for the undercurrents, I said, the old hurt rising unexpectedly in my throat like the burn from a too intense sprint. All those times red flags were dismissed or laughed off as guy stuff. You just observed, letting it slide to keep the peace. I was wrong, she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I told myself I was being neutral, a supportive veteran, but I failed as an ally when you needed advocates most. The simple acknowledgement pierced something long frozen inside me, a thaw that brought unexpected relief. I'd come prepared for defensiveness, for accusations, even for group backlash. I hadn't prepared for genuine remorse from someone I'd admired from afar. What happens now? The veteran asked after a long silence, her eyes searching mine for hope amid the uncertainty. Tomorrow morning, the exposure becomes public through a coordinated post on Vital Flow's channels. Velocity Vibes will integrate as a subsidiary, focusing on authentic wellness over performative fitness. The Vibe name will remain for now, but sessions will be completely restructured to include mental health check-ins and boundary workshops. I hesitated, then added, Sasha and the Front Row Pro will be offered advisory positions with no leading authority if they want them, mostly for appearances during the transition, to ease the shift without total disruption. And will you move to lead full-time? I shook my head, the decision firm. I'll remain based at my home office. We'll install a new facilitation team here, trained in inclusive practices. She nodded, seeming to understand all I wasn't saying, that I'd outgrown the superficial dynamic, the version of myself that sought validation in group approval. Sasha may never forgive you for this, she warned softly, her concern genuine. I know, I acknowledged, but this isn't about forgiveness, it's about finally being seen and creating space for real growth. After she left, I worked until dawn preparing for the morning's confrontation, ignoring the texts from Riley asking for updates and the pings from app users sensing a big announcement. As the first gray light of morning filtered through the high windows, I changed into one of my Athleta suits, styled my hair into a sleek ponytail that screamed confidence, and put on the subtle makeup that Sophie Hale was known for in her rare public features, natural yet empowering. The morning would bring either a new beginning for the Velocity Vibes group or its final fracturing under the weight of truth. Either way, I was ready, my app open on my phone with drafts of supportive messages for members. The lobby was eerily quiet when I came down at 7 a.m. The front desk staff silently handed me a fresh smoothie, her eyes communicating a mixture of concern and quiet respect for the shift I'd initiated. The studio had been cleared of last night's disaster, with mats rolled up and bikes wiped down, no evidence remaining of the emotional explosion, except the lingering tension in the air like post-storm humidity. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls from partner coaches, eager for updates on the integration announcement scheduled for 9 a.m. A text from Riley. Did you drop the truth bomb? Are they still spinning? I had just finished responding when Sasha appeared in the doorway of the lobby, looking older than she had yesterday, the lines around her eyes deeper from lack of sleep, her normally impeccable posture slightly stooped under the weight of revelations. My office now, her tone left no room for discussion, though it lacked its usual commanding edge. I followed her down the hallway to the room that had always been the center of Velocity Vibes' power, the walls covered with framed class photos, fitness magazine covers featuring Sasha, industry awards for Best Community Studio, and Snapchat *TS with celebrity guests and influencers. Conspicuously absent was any recognition of my quiet contributions, though a group photo from last year's charity ride sat on a side table, half hidden behind more prominent Victory *TS. Sasha took her seat behind the massive desk, a position she had used to motivate and sometimes int mid-8 members for years. I chose not to sit in the visitor's chair as expected, instead perching on the edge of the desk itself, a subtle repositioning of our power dynamic that did not go unnoticed, her eyes narrowing slightly. My contacts confirm what you said last class, she began without preamble, her voice weary. The exposure is solid. Members are already sharing stories online. The group vote in our emergency chat was unanimous for change. Of course it was, I replied calmly. Velocity Vibes has been losing authentic trust for 3 years. Your methods have become superficial, your structure clique-heavy, and your development pipeline for real emotional support is empty. The group recognized a need for genuine shift when they saw the patterns laid bare. The tip-off, she said, shaking her head in disbelief. The Vibe was valued so highly just 2 years ago. We were featured in Wellness Weekly. The Vibe was overinflated 2 years ago, I corrected gently. And I offered more than any other approach would have. Most would have disbanded the group entirely, letting the toxicity dissolve without reconstruction. She looked up sharply, her eyes flashing with a mix of defiance and fear. And is that your plan, to erase our community legacy completely? No. Despite everything, I respect what you built from a single class and what you expanded into a space for connection. The Vibe's name stays, though the structure will change significantly to emphasize inclusivity. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her features, softening the hard lines of her face. What exactly are your plans for integration? I'd waited years for her to ask my opinion on wellness matters. The irony was not lost on me, a quiet victory in itself. Velocity Vibes will become the community division of Vital Flow, focusing on updating your performative sessions and integrating them with our mindfulness platforms. We'll retain approximately 80% of the current members with significant changes to leadership. And me? She asked, the question clearly costing her, her hands clasped tightly on the desk. You'll be offered a position as mentor emeritus. No operational authority, but you'll maintain a reserved spot in classes and can advise on member retention during the transition. Her jaw tightened, a figurehead role, a respected advisory position, I countered, with full access to new programs and a generous compensation package for your insights. She stood abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the bustling street below, where early morning joggers and coffee carriers hurried by. For a long moment, she said nothing, her back to me as she stared out at the city that had been the backdrop to our shared fitness journeys. "How did you do it?" she finally asked, her voice quieter now, laced with genuine curiosity. "Build something that valuable when you had nothing. No spotlight, no startup funds from group sponsorships. I had my passion," I reminded her, "the one thing you couldn't diminish, and I had tremendous motivation to prove the doubters wrong, including those who saw wellness as just a hobby." She turned back to face me, her expression a mix of resignation and reflection. "I expected you to drop out. I know, everyone does. Fail. I mean, 90% of wellness ventures never make it past the first 3 years. I thought." She hesitated, seeming to struggle with the words, her usual eloquence faltering. "I thought I was protecting the group's vibe from inevitable disappointment by keeping things light and fun. By ensuring deeper ideas never got airtime?" I raised an eyebrow, the question pointed but not accusatory. "That's not protection, Sasha. That's control, limiting growth to what feels safe." She flinched slightly at the accusation, her shoulders tensing. "Perhaps. I built this studio from one rented space, expanded it 10 times over with events and merch. I thought I knew best how to keep it thriving." "But you didn't," I said simply, the truth straightforward like a nutrition fact label. "You were wrong about me. Wrong about the direction of true wellness. Wrong about the Front Row Pro being the natural ally when she enabled the issues." At the mention of her close confidant, Sasha's expression darkened, a shadow crossing her features. "The Front Row Pro may have her flaws, but she's been loyal to this studio through thick and thin. The Front Row Pro has been enabling deceptions for at least 2 years, I informed her bluntly, pulling out my phone to reference the compiled evidence. "I have all the documentation, chats, timestamps, overlooked warnings. That's part of why I moved now, before more harm could spread like unchecked negativity in a session." Sasha sank back into her chair, the shock of this new revelation apparently too much to process while standing, her hands gripping the armrests. "That can't be true. She's my right hand. $25,000 siphoned through bogus event bookings and sponsorships that never materialized. The evidence is irrefutable. Why would she need to enable or hide? She has prime spots, perks, addictions to the spotlight," I said. "Social validation mostly, from what I can tell based on patterns in her posts and interactions." Sasha buried her face in her hands briefly before looking back up, suddenly appearing every one of her 45 years, the studio lights highlighting the fatigue. "So both my ally and my group were failing, and I was too blind to see either, too focused on metrics like attendance over emotional health." The naked vulnerability in her admission caught me off guard. I'd expected more defensiveness, more accusations, not this broken acceptance that mirrored my own past hurts. "Not blind," I said, softening my tone slightly to offer a bridge, "just looking in the wrong direction. Outward success over inward integrity." A long silence stretched between us, filled with years of unspoken observations and missed opportunities for deeper connection. When she finally spoke again, her voice had changed, the arrogance replaced with something approaching genuine curiosity, a rare glimpse behind the instructor mask. "How did you do it?" she asked. "Really? No network in fitness circles, no investors who knew the Vibe's name. How did you build something so successful from scratch?" I considered deflecting to keep distance, but there was something in her question that seemed sincere for the first time in our interactions, a crack in the facade inviting real dialogue. "I started small," I explained, my words measured like guiding a beginner through a pose. "Freelance coaching sessions to build capital and test ideas. Then I created a proprietary mindfulness integration platform that solved a problem every wellness seeker has, connecting daily habits with mental health architecture for sustainable change. It was actually based on the proposal you dismissed when I was 22, the one about incorporating emotional tracking into fitness routines." A flicker of recognition crossed her face, surprise widening her eyes. "The one with the habit linking system." I nodded, genuinely startled she remembered even that much detail from our brief interactions. "Yes. I refined it over months of trial and error, made it more adaptable with user feedback loops, used it to attract my first major clients through free webinars that went viral in niche groups, reinvested every profit, lived in a studio apartment eating salads from dollar stores for 3 years to keep overhead low and focus on content creation. Built a team of passionate coaches who believed in the vision without the Reynolds name to open doors," she mused, her tone thoughtful for the first time. "Because of that, in some ways, I corrected. Being underestimated is a powerful position if you know how to use it. No one saw me coming, just like in a surprise sprint finish." She almost smiled at that, a reluctant twitch of her lips. "Clearly not. We all missed the signs, both in Derek and in you." Another silence fell, but different now, less hostile and more reflective, like the quiet after a storm clears the air. I checked my watch, the Garmin beeping softly. The statement goes out in 45 minutes. We should discuss next steps to ensure a smooth transition. What about the front row pro and the shy one? She asked, her concern for the group genuine despite everything. The front row pro will be offered a choice: step aside quietly with a reasonable severance package or face potential consequences for the enabling. The shy one, I paused, considering her unexpected pitch. The shy one actually made a compelling case last class for serving as a support ambassador. Her quiet strength could be legitimately valuable in the right context, perhaps leading introvert-focused sessions. Sasha looked genuinely surprised, her eyebrows arching. You'd keep them involved after everything? This was never about destroying the group, Sasha. It was about claiming my place in it on my terms, turning toxicity into true empowerment. She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the papers on her desk. Class schedules, member lists, then rising again to meet mine with unexpected directness. You outmaneuvered me completely, she said, and I was startled to detect a note of something almost like pride in her voice, a coach recognizing a student's breakthrough. Your mom would have been impressed. She always talked about resilience in our chats. Coming from her, it was as close to approval as I'd ever received, a validation that hit deeper than any app download milestone. I felt a complicated emotion rising in my chest, not quite vindication, not quite forgiveness, but something hovering in the space between, like the balance point in a yoga pose. I learned from observing you, I acknowledged, even when you didn't think I was paying attention during those overlooked moments. She extended her hand across the desk. So, Mentor Emeritus. I took her hand, sealing the first collaborative agreement we'd ever made as equals. Welcome to Vital Flow, Sasha. 8 months after that fateful spin class, I stood in the newly renovated headquarters of Vital Vibes Wellness. The former Velocity Vibe studio had been transformed with open meditation zones, state-of-the-art recovery pods, and a collaborative environment that respected the group's history while embracing its future, including cozy corners for journaling and group shares. My role as lead of Vital Flow meant I split my time between my Seattle home base and virtual expansions, overseeing the merge of the two brands and the evolution of our expanded programs, from hybrid spin mindfulness classes to online support groups. The shift had not been easy. There were resistance sessions where old habits resurfaced, and emotional check-ins that ran long, but it had been more successful than even my optimistic projections had anticipated, with membership growing 40% from word of mouth alone. Sasha had surprised everyone by embracing her mentor emeritus role with unexpected grace, her initial stun and rage fading into a renewed passion for guiding. Once the dust settled, she found satisfaction in mentoring newer members through one-on-one wellness audits and maintaining relationships with long-standing participants who'd been wary of change. We had established a weekly virtual meeting where she could offer insights on group history and retention strategies, drawing from her years of experience. And I found myself actually looking forward to these sessions, our conversations evolving from tense to collaborative, sharing laughs over past class mishaps. For the first time, we were building a relationship based on mutual respect rather than hierarchies and oversights. The front row pro situation had been more complicated, her enabling role a thornier issue to untangle. After facing the evidence of her complicity, chats where she dismissed concerns about Derek as drama, she had initially threatened to rally members against the integration. Eventually, cooler heads prevailed when she realized her options were limited by the overwhelming support for transparency. She accepted a conditional offer: repayment of any misused funds through community service hours, resignation from her unofficial lead spot, and enrollment in a leadership therapy program if she wanted any future role in the revamped group. To my surprise, she chose healing over exile and was now halfway through her first course, calling occasionally with genuine questions about boundary-setting workshops. The shy one had flourished in her new support ambassador role for our community arm, a small but growing part of the brand that benefited from her quiet wisdom and ability to listen without judgment. Her followers had been captivated by the dramatic group saga, which she carefully presented as a story of female empowerment and collective reconciliation rather than the more complex reality of betrayal and growth. Her authentic rebrand had actually opened doors to introvert markets we had previously struggled to reach, with sessions tailored for those who preferred low-key participation over high-energy shouts. Aunt Karen had perhaps changed the most, starting to volunteer with women's support initiatives and even joining the board of a local incubator for female-led wellness startups. I want to help other girls like you, she told me during one of our now regular coffee meetups. So their mentors don't make the same mistakes I did in overlooking potential. As I walked through the studio, members nodded respectfully or smiled in greeting, some pausing to share quick wins from their latest app sessions. I was no longer Sophie Hale, the mysterious creator, nor Sophia Reynolds, the overlooked participant. I was simply Sophia, the lead who had revitalized a faltering group and created new opportunities for everyone involved, from beginner spinners to seasoned veterans. My assistant interrupted my thoughts with a gentle tap. Sasha is waiting in the lounge with the quarterly reports, she informed me, and Aunt Karen called to confirm the gathering tonight with potential collaborators. I thanked her and headed toward the meeting, pausing briefly by the newly installed timeline mural in the main lobby. It displayed the evolution of Velocity Vibes from Mom's early inspirations to our current iteration as Vital Vibes Wellness, with photos of key moments like the first class and the post-exposure relaunch. My photo now hung alongside those of the founders and Sasha, multiple generations of leadership with my own achievements listed with the same prominence as theirs, app launches, user testimonials, and the integration that saved the community. Spin class was approaching again, and this year would be entirely different. No more superficial placements or ignored voices. We had planned a smaller, more int**mate supportive session without the performative traditions that had dominated our previous gatherings, focusing instead on shared stories and genuine check-ins. No formal shout-outs, no competitive posing, just a group still learning how to truly see and hear each other, pedaling forward together. The journey from doubt to unbreakable sisterhood had been longer and more painful than I could have imagined when I first launched Vital Flow 6 years ago, alone in my tiny apartment with nothing but a laptop and a dream. The challenges of merging personal betrayal with group dynamics continue daily, requiring patience and perspective I was still developing, like fine-tuning an app update based on user feedback. There had been moments when the weight of past hurts threatened to overwhelm the progress we had made, when old patterns of dismissal emerged in tense sessions or group meets, or when lingering resentments surfaced during collaborations. The hardest part had not been the exposure itself, but the ongoing work of building relationships that could withstand both our shared history and our current roles in the revamped space. Sasha still occasionally slipped into her authoritarian approach before catching herself, apologizing with a self-deprecating laugh that showed her growth. I sometimes found myself unnecessarily defensive, anticipating dismissal that no longer came, a reflex from years of being overlooked. Yet slowly, conversation by conversation, session by session, the Vital Vibes group was creating a new dynamic, one rooted in vulnerability, accountability, and mutual uplift. Aunt Karen had hosted a gathering last month where, for the first time in my memory, everyone shared equally, stories of triumphs and failures without judgment. Everyone listened intently, and no one stormed out in anger or frustration. Small victories, but meaningful ones that built like compound interest in a wellness routine. Perhaps the most profound moment had come unexpectedly during a late-night studio review when Sasha and I were analyzing the first quarter results after the integration, the numbers glowing on the screen in the dim light. The figures had exceeded all projections, with member retention at 95% and new enrollments boosting revenue by 40%, a testament to the power of authentic change. "You know," she had said quietly, staring at the spreadsheet with a mix of pride and humility. "You've already accomplished more in reshaping this group than I did in my first decade leading it, turning potential collapse into thriving community." The simple acknowledgement had healed something in me that I hadn't realized was still broken, a deep-seated need for validation from those who doubted. Not because I needed it professionally anymore, the app's success spoke for itself, but because it represented the human recognition I'd sought all along, the bridge from isolation to inclusion. The experience had taught me that empowerment itself is not enough to heal wounds from betrayal. The satisfaction of uncovering truth had been sweet but ultimately hollow until it led to genuine connection and collective growth. I'd needed to learn that there's a difference between exposing and resolving, between being right and being whole. True healing requires not just justice, but the willingness to rebuild together. As I entered the lounge where Sasha waited with the quarterly reports, spreadsheets spread out like a map of our progress, I reflected on how complex the journey had been from that spin class revelation to today, from a moment of personal heartbreak to a movement of shared strength. The lesson I carried forward was not that empowerment is the best revenge, but that empowerment without bonds leaves everyone poorer, isolated in their pain. True victory came not when I proved the doubters wrong, but when we all found a way to be right together, supporting each other through the ride of life. For anyone watching this who recognizes the painful dynamics of betrayal in relationships or groups, who has felt invisible or undervalued by those who should see you most clearly, I hope my story offers both inspiration and caution. Building your own strength is powerful, but healing wounds and fostering true sisterhood requires more than individual achievement. It demands honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to offer second chances even when they seem undeserved, because in the end, girls support girls isn't just a phrase, it's a lifeline that can pull us all to higher ground. Have you experienced similar relationship challenges or moments of unexpected solidarity? Comment below and share your story. How did you navigate the complex intersection of betrayal and bonds? Like, subscribe, and share if this resonated with you. Thank you for witnessing my journey from doubt to unbreakable sisterhood. And remember that the true measure of empowerment is not what you build alone, but what you create together, linking arms, pedaling forward, one revolution at a time.